Welcome into a new BuffStampede Radio. Adam Munsterteiger, the publisher of BuffStampede.com on the 24/7 Sports Network. Again, joined by our football analyst, William Gardner. William, we addressed some rumors going around out there on yesterday's show. Today, we got to remember a legend at CU and in Boulder and just really in the college football community. Bill McCartney passed away, and I know that you played under him at CU, and I don't really know where you want to take this. Kind of lead me to an area that can maybe give both old CU fans and new CU fans maybe some insight into what you experienced with the man and how special he was.
Well, I think Bill McCartney, quite frankly, shares a lot of things in common with Deion Sanders and Coach Prime. And I think the main thing, I was just talking to somebody in my work today about leadership, and he was saying, I don't know how to lead people and inspire people. And I said, basically, it boils down to one thing: you got to care about them, and you got to let them know you care about them. And both of these men are outstanding at that. And I think Coach McCartney, what was impressive to me, he didn't play favorites. If you could be the starting quarterback, you could be Sal and Nessie, or you could be some dumbass like me that never got in a game or got close to getting in a game. And he still cared about you and still cared about your future. And I can still remember all those years ago, him pulling me aside and asking me, what do you, about he'd heard somebody come and talk to him. And he's like, what are you doing with that? How's that going to make you better in your life and a better person? And I didn't have any reason for me to be important to him, but I was, I wasn't going to ever play or anything, but, he cared about me. He cared about the secretaries. He cared about the groundskeepers. He cared about everybody. And I think that was just one of the special things about Coach McCartney, that he had that passion, but he always had that way of letting anybody he was talking to know that they mattered to him, and I'm getting a little emotional because I think about a lot of different situations and such where he showed that care for different players and different people and what have you. And I don't think people saw that so much necessarily on the TV when he was coaching games and things like that. He tended to be not the game day coach that was out there, doing things and whatever. But I recall him from practice. He would walk around with a yardstick, old wooden yardstick, right? And he would be slapping his leg with it, hitting his shoe. And the thing I remember from him was, and you hear it all the way across the field if he's, with some other group, do it again. And he just, not only did he demand perfection, but he made you do it until you got it right. And he always had the right thing to say, always had a motivational angle on things. And he would show up at summer workouts and talk to guys, but he cared about people's education and their family life and things like that. And I just think that he was a magical human being,
Yeah.
I don't think people see that. I think they think football coach and they get a certain image in their mind. And I think what made him a great leader of men was that caring for everybody involved, and yet at the same time, he also realized that there's a bottom line that we got to reach here,
Mhm.
So he was tough, but he was also, very forgiving, but would give guys chances and what have you. And I think he got in trouble for that a little bit with the media early on and such like that. But I think he was just an impressive human being all the way around. I wish he'd have stayed 10 more years. I think he'd be one of the greatest coaches of all time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if somebody has a passion to do something else, it's hard to say they shouldn't do that. But, I think for a lot of folks that I've talked to that were around back in that era, it was kind of this, how do we even replicate this? And they had so much talent in the program that they sustained that for a while. But I think it was a very long time, like you said, maybe till Coach Prime, until they were able to get a magnetic force in that head coaching seat the way that Bill McCartney was.
Right. Well, and I think, it was a whole different era in terms of how you built teams and what have you. And there was no NIL. Basically, you recruited on the basis of your personality and being able to sell what you had. He didn't have much to sell early on, but what he did that first full recruiting class was he went around the state of Colorado, and they had a phenomenal amount of talent in that state that year, and he kept them home, man. He decided we're gonna so he got Barry Remington, who to this day is the best linebacker that ever played at CU, and anybody want to disagree with me, I'll fight you. But Eric McCartney, who played fullback and linebacker, was all Big 8 linebacker for us, was in that class. Ed Reinhardt, John Embry. Well, John Embry went to Cherry Creek, so he was from Colorado. Mm-hmm. And there's just a whole list of in-state guys that he made it a target and a priority to go get them. And he didn't talk down to them, like if you leave, you're going to suck. Like, I don't know who that knucklehead was that used that approach recently, but he said, come up here and build something special and be part of something special, represent your home. I think it meant more at that time. There wasn't as many people in Colorado. And so, staying here, and I think it was really kind of, it seemed crazy at the time, but it was brilliant to sort of paint Nebraska as the big rival when we hadn't beaten them in 20 years, and most of the games against them were 56-7, what have you. But, we got closer and closer to chipped away. And I think it was 1986. We finally beat them 20-10, and after that it was over, it was just, cause he just had a way with recruiting, and, you didn't have any websites or anything back there. All you could do was get the Daily Camera and see, what guys had come to visit. And there was all these sort of paper publications that you'd get in the mail if you were a dumb nut like me. And, list the names in different cities and schools, and he would get those guys, and I recall I came down. I played my first year at Northern Colorado, and man, it was McCartney's first year, and they were bad. I mean, they lost to Drake. They lost to 82-42 or something like that to Oklahoma. Like, I could play down there. And so I transferred to CU, and I get there, and I see guys like Sandy Armstrong, who was an outside linebacker. And I was like, Jesus, this guy's a monster, man. Holy shit. Victor Scott got drafted in the first round as a cornerback that year, and I got there the same time that Ed Reinhardt and John Embry. And, I had gone against Barry Remington every year in football camps and at Fairview, because I played at Littleton, and so I knew what he was. And I get there, and I'm like, God, look at these guys. Where do they feed these guys? Where do they get these guys? And that wasn't even the good guys, and then the next year that first class showed up, and you were just like, my God. And I remember that first year, I think that first year I was there was 1-10. And I kept going back to the dorm saying, we're going to be good, man. We're going to be good, because everybody, all those redshirt freshmen, maybe it was the second year, because all those redshirt freshmen were playing a lot, and people laughed in my face. I said, okay, but Bill McCartney believed, and he believed in everybody there, and he had a way of making you believe in yourself. And I think that's the key to leadership is that, if everybody was Travis Hunter, we wouldn't need coaches, right? Because they would get everything. Travis Hunter going to get everything out of Travis Hunter that he can. He doesn't need a coach to help him do it, right? The rest of us are schlubs, we need a kick in the butt, and we need a pat on the back, and sometimes we need a carrot, and sometimes we need a stick. And Bill McCartney just always seemed to have the right answer, he could make you tear down a wall and just do whatever you had to do to be successful and win. So I'm just sort of blubbering on at this point. I think
that's great stuff. Thanks for sharing all that stuff.
Yeah,
we should probably do like another Bill McCartney segment here in a couple of weeks, because I'm going to go out to the public memorial next week, and we'll have some more stuff to talk about. I want to hear some more of those stories from your time there at CU under him.
Well, and they'll all come to me after we're off the air. So,
well, put them on a notepad or something, and we'll come back to that, because we've got a long off season, and there is a lot more to talk about when it comes to Bill McCartney.
Yeah, and crazy to think, to me it's 40 years ago. God damn.
Yeah.
Oh, holy crap!
I don't know what to tell you, William. You're getting old.
Yeah, you were running around, probably smearing stuff on the walls and getting whooped by your mama.
Something like that. I don't know. I was a pretty good kid, though, William.
Yeah.
Don't get that twisted. So Coach Prime, He is magnetic, just like Bill McCartney was as the head coach in Boulder. And he had his first team meeting, William, with the Buffaloes, and Shiloh Sanders, Shador Sanders were not in that room. And he addressed that. And he talked about how he appreciated that the guys that had joined the program had partly done that, or mainly because of him, and he really appreciated that. So that was kind of a cool moment to see
Yeah.
this team come back together again. It's a very quick turnaround from that Alamo Bowl.
And I think that one of the things he said was that he'd been looking forward to this day. Uh, and that's going to sound counterintuitive to people that say, he just loved coaching his own kids. But I think he also wants to prove, and I think there's another reason why he's going to stick around, but he wants to prove that he wasn't just doing this on the backs of his sons and Travis Hunter, who might as well be one of his sons, but that he can do it without those guys. And so he looked out there. One of the things he said was I'm so excited to be up here. He said, this is the first time I've ever coached that I've addressed my team without two knuckleheads in the back. And then he was excited to be there, and we're going to do this thing. And I was just encouraged by that. And then they introduced all the new guys on that same video, and holy hell.
Nearly 30 of them, by the way.
Yeah,
most of that high school class is on campus. Zane D'Souza, who we saw, is not going to be, but all those other high school signees are on campus. So
and some of those transfers, the size of them is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Chauncey Gooden looks like he's been there for 3 years already, and Jaheim Oates, like you could sublet out part of him and people could live on there. It's like that guy's a condominium.
Yeah. The first thing I saw when the team came out before the Alamo Bowl, and I pulled out the binoculars, was Chauncey Gooden, and I was like, this man is about as wide as he is tall.
Right.
And it looks like he's going to just be an absolute bulldozer for the Buffaloes at SeaWorld before the Alamo Bowl a couple of days prior to that. Carday Smith got off the bus and was like, yeah, you talked about back when you're talking about Coach McCartney and those guys you joined, and they look different. A lot of these guys showing up that should still be figuring out who they're going to take to prom and what they're going to do for graduation. Instead of that, they're at CU and they don't look like they should be.
Well, and the guys that, what really impressed me was all the defensive tackles that were in that room being introduced, and every single one of them was as thick as Wankwo and just looked like a Volkswagen, so they did some good work in this off season, and I think they reloaded, and there's probably more to come, but it's very exciting to see some of these new guys and that they're getting started in the weight room, and new era in there a little bit to some extent, but I thought it was a exciting first, and I guess it leads into our next thing is that he also introduced some of his new coaches and who's going to be doing what. So
well, let's start with Andrew Swayze, who is going to be the new head strength and conditioning coach, and Reyes is still going to be on staff, and Coach Mo is still going to be on staff, and it sounds like they've got somebody else they're going to hire there. Swayze had an amazing reputation at Miami. He's been in some different spots since then. His message was a little bit more in your face, maybe. What was your takeaway?
Well, I think his message, and I think one of the reasons they brought him on was to have, you watch Coach Mo, and he's an outstanding strength coach, and his motivational way is quieter, sort of. He's a different kind of leader, but he's still an excellent leader and very motivational. But I think Coach Prime wanted some of that fire and brimstone kind of stuff going on, and so Coach Swayze's basically saying, are you still playing? Are you still playing? Who's still playing? Anybody happy with that? If you're happy with that, you shouldn't be here, because that should be you playing in those games right now. And we're going to put in that work to make sure that happens to you. And it kind of reminded me of back in the, I don't know when it was, late 80s or early 90s, maybe, when Coach McCartney hired Jeff Madden, Mad Dog Madden, and I remember Coach McCartney talked about it in an interview, and he said, "Well, I said to Coach Madden, sometimes not all these guys have a fire in them. Some of you got to motivate them, and you got to find them." He said, "What are you going to do with those guys that you can't motivate?" And so according to Coach Madden said, "Coach, I ain't met the man I can't motivate." And so that's what I thought of when watching Coach Swayze addressing that group.
Has anybody in your entire life that you've met had bigger biceps than Mad Dog?
He's just a massive dude. Yeah. I mean, I've seen a few guys.
George Hageman's a big guy too. Yeah.
Yeah. But I've seen guys that, like I saw guys in the Marine Corps and stuff that are huge and things like that.
Okay.
But guys that played for us. And yeah, he's a big dude.
George Hageman, who I mentioned, is going to be a co-offensive line coach this coming season after being more in a leadership role this past season.
Well, I think I read that as co-assistant offensive line coach. I mean, I took that as they're still waiting to hire the offensive line coach.
Right.
He and Gunnar White. So Gunnar White was there last year as a GA, was a sort of the assistant O-line coach. And so what I take from it is they're going to have 3 offensive line coaches now, just like they do on the defensive line. So I don't know who the offensive line.
Well, we talked about that, remember, on our last show, of like that being kind of the right plan of finding the right mix between having enough cooks in the kitchen when you don't have this limitation on number of assistant coaches on the field versus not having too many. And I think, I think 2 or 3 coaches on that O-line.
Well, and the O-line coach got the most players on the team. So it only stands to reason that they got more coaches, and then they can break it up. You can break it up by, somebody coaches the center, somebody coaches the guards, somebody coaches the tackles, maybe one of the guy coaches the young guys. I don't know. But the more eyes you got out there with all those guys, the more you can develop everybody in that group. So,
and George Hilo takes over the edge group, taking over from Vincent Dancy. He joined Colorado staff midway through the preseason last August. And we've heard that he's had a really big role of kind of being Robert Livingston's eyes and ears up. I guess eyes. I don't think you really need ears up in the press box. But being a guy that can come down at halftime and add a few things in terms of adjustments. And now he takes over the edge group. And that's going to be a pretty talented group.
Yeah. And he's another guy with a stellar reputation in terms of developing linebackers and defensive ends and things like that. So he's another guy with an NFL background who comes in and, that doesn't come in this year, but he was here last year and really adds to that pedigree of the coaching staff that Coach Prime is hiring. And I think what you're seeing put together is really a high level, very professional NFL sort of staff who could teach the things that the guys need to know to really excel at this level.
And Tommy Robinson is going to help out with the running backs. It sounds like he's still going to be kind of a quality control coach as well. And then, of course, Michael Pollock. That's the other big story here, William, is they've got a new special teams coordinator. They had Trevor Riley, Coach Prime's first year in Boulder this past season. It was Robinson handling that, but kind of rushed into that role because Riley kind of went off, I don't know, can you say off the grid on some level? I don't know.
Off the rails.
We'll move along. So now you've got Michael Pollock, who a former Georgia coach that has a lot of experience in that state at the high school level. He goes on, he joins Coach Prime. He was actually the quarterbacks coach, Shedeur Sanders' first year at Jackson State, helped him be, I think, freshman of the year at that FCS level. And he's been on Colorado staff. If you tune into the pregame show on YouTube, Uncle Neely has had a great series with Andre Hart and Michael Pollock, and those guys have quite a bit of personality. So he takes over that group. I was just watching, there's a video by Uncle Neely of Coach Pollock meeting those specialists for their first time. And so they're kind of getting their feet wet in that room. I mean, it's hard to say. I think Coach Pollock has got a great personality, is a good coach, and it's nice that you have that body in place January 15th versus kind of rushing to figure out who's going to handle that special teams responsibility.
And I think that Coach Prime looks at last year and realized that we got burned a couple times on the special teams, and he wants them to be better, and so it's just another evidence to me that he's dealing with all the issues that kind of popped up this year, and he learns from his mistakes, and each year he tries to fix those things, and you know, with the ultimate goal that you finally put together a team on the field that's got all those things fixed, and you are playing for the national championship. So
Yeah.
I think it's a progression, and it shows again the professionalism and the total sort of vision that Coach Prime has and how he fills it. With very professional men, and I think that speaks to, I don't know who he'll name as the O-line coach. I don't think it's going to be at least one of the names that gets bounced around the board, because that's not a professional hire, but we'll see.
Okay. And we have other personnel news here, and that's Preston Hodge coming back to CU in 2025. He walked on senior day. We thought it was done for him. And then the NCAA, which I think this is a good rule, it's like they just come up with these things out of thin air, though. Sometimes it's like, could you give these guys some warning? So there's a new JUCO ruling that if you played at the JUCO ranks earlier in your career, there's some kind of waiver you can get. And so Preston Hodge is going to be back with the Buffs in 2025. He was really good in that nickelback role. And if Avery Johnson didn't make the throw of his life against him, I would say like the people would be doing backflips. I think Preston Hodge is going to be an all preseason, all conference type candidate as a nickelback.
Oh yeah, absolutely. One of the top defensive backs in the conference by far. And I think he is underrated by CU fans in terms of what he did, and he gives us three of the top cornerbacks in the conference, frankly, in my view.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we'll be just as strong. I don't think you're ever going to have to worry about defensive backs on a Coach Prime coach team, but certainly we got the talent back there. We're bringing in some more. I think we'll probably fill in a few more guys at safety and whatever, but a guy like Tawfiq Byard helps us out at safety. And I think we're pretty solid back there. And then you look at some of the guys we brought in on the defensive line, and I'm pretty excited. I think we're going to be 6 deep on the D line again too. So, we should be pretty salty on defense. We're going to have to fill those linebacker spots. We've got 3 guys so far, and I kind of feel like we need a couple more, but we'll see what we get in the second window and see what happens in spring.
And got to make sure Livingston sticks around Boulder for
Yeah.
at least one more year, right?
Yeah, a couple years, whatever it takes, and then you got, we got a guy like McCartney Vickers is coming in as a transfer from Oklahoma, and he should add something to the mix. And so there's a lot to look forward to in spring. And I don't know, some people are like, oh, I got to relearn all the names. I don't know. It's kind of exciting to me. It's like new hope, and I'll look at all these guys. And some of them are going to stand out and some of them won't. But I think overall it will make us better as a team. So, I think we're going to be really deep and talented at defensive back and wide receiver positions again.
It is overwhelming at first, but just thank God that these guys are pretty good.
Yeah.
If you're a Colorado fan.
Well, at least we're not going into spring talking about, hey, maybe we can turn this tight end into an offensive tackle if we could put 5 pounds on him, or some garbage like that. So, I'd rather have it this way.
Before we close out, William, I want to get your thoughts on a couple new CU offensive line transfers, Mana Tamani and Zy Chrysler. Mana is from Ole Miss, Chrysler from Illinois. Any thoughts here in terms of what these guys kind of bring to the mix and what you think about their potential?
Well, I think they're massive guys, and quite clearly in the portal in this offseason on the offensive line, we've gone for ginormous size and guys that are older and got 4 or 5 years under their belt. Taimani has been at Ole Miss for a couple of years and had tremendous potential, and I think he's still trying to reach that. So I think we get the right offensive line coach, we can get something out of him. I think Zy Chrysler is he's a guy that can play tackle for you. I think that's not his lead position. I still think we need to find a couple of tackles, and probably that'll be the second portal window. But I think Chrysler is a guy that you can put out there at tackle in spring, and let's see what he does. But it's hard to go wrong when you're bringing in a bunch of guys that are 6'4" and 350 and 6'6" for Chrysler and 335, and you add those guys to Ogunbiyi and some of the other guys we've got earlier, and I think I think we're going to be. I think we got the guys to be very solid in the interior three, and we've clearly got probably the best left tackle in the conference. I'd like to get somebody backing him up. So now we just need to address that right tackle spot, and if Houston comes back from injury, that's one guy, but we need some more competition. But we're going to have some guys that can push people around and can hold their own. And we'll see what happens in spring and what kind of an offense that our offensive coordinator puts on the field with these guys.
You mentioned the interior there. Zarian McGill is my guy at center right now. What do you think about that position?
Well, I think he, we throw him out there. He's 6'2", 310. He brings more size to the position than we've had in a while, and so he's also got some playing time behind him. And Cash Cleveland can play there. Gooden can play at that. Has played center in high school and could potentially be factor in at that position. And I think ideally, as an offensive line coach, you'd like to have guys be able to play more than one position, and so you can cycle them around. But who comes out of this on top remains to be seen. And I just like to see a lot of competition, and whoever ends up being a starter, let the best man play.
Great stuff, William. And thanks again at the top of the show for kind of sharing some of those stories, because I know there's been a lot of heavy hearts around the CU community the last short of a week, but it's been kind of tough to move past Bill McCartney being on this earth, and so I appreciate you for sharing those thoughts.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to sort of remember some of that stuff and talk about it a little bit. So I think people that didn't get to know him missed out on meeting a great person. So I think he made a huge impact on a lot of people's lives.
All right, William, I appreciate you. Let's get back together for another show pretty soon. Sound good?
Okay, we'll do it.
All right, sounds good. And thanks everybody out there for tuning in. Today's episode is brought to us by Macaulay Capital Fractional CFO Services. Is your business looking for financial guidance and support, but not yet big enough to hire a full-time CFO? Well, we have a solution for you. Hiring a fractional CFO who can work with your business on a part-time basis. You get the benefit of having a seasoned financial expert on your team without the commitment or expense of a full-time hire. And here's the best part. It's likely that a partnership with Macaulay Capital will be a win-win situation, meaning that your business will make more money from the guidance of a fractional CFO than the total cost of partnering with us. For more information or to set up a meeting, please visit MacaulayCapital.com. That's MCCAULEY capital.com.